On this episode of Feel Dumb for Asking.
Hope is a very powerful word and experience. And I will say there were times when I did not have it at all.
And now, Ronnie and Bo.
Well, welcome to Feel Dumb for Asking, Bo and listener. Do we have one?
I think so.
And we should address them as individuals, Bo. Come on.
Well, the nice thing is when we have guests, they hopefully persuade their parents to listen. So we might have more than one this time.
So we got a handful, which is good. But I know that there are literally millions of people that have questions that they feel dumb for asking. And so we're just trying to take the edge off that by giving some answers to questions that people might feel dumb for asking. And today is no different because we're going to answer a question and we're going to talk to a guest that's going to help us answer that question.
And the question has to do with social media. And she is an expert. Maybe not an expert. She would not say she's an expert, but I would certainly say she's pretty prolific in social media platforms.
Well, that's for sure. We'll
tell me about her.
We'll get to an updated or a future episode. We'll hit the social media stuff because she's got enough for 3 or 4 episodes just on her social media knowledge. Right. So we're going to go personal today, Bo, because this is a dear friend of mine, an old friend of mine. She herself is not old, but I mean, I've known her for a long time. One of my favorite people. She is brilliant. Okay. And listen to this resonate. She multifaceted, content and production creative. She has driven vision, storytelling, and positive business results for top brands, including Target, Home Depot, Coca-Cola. She was a leader in influencer marketing before there was even a word for it. Because now everybody wants to be an influencer, and we know what an influencer is. But back when Alex was starting, this was not a common deal. So with over 10 years of influencer marketing experience and over 1 million followers, she has been able to leverage her influence to create positive business results. Business Insider and InStyle magazine deemed Alex the top pinner for Pinterest.
Nice.
She's a speaker. She's got these amazing kiddos. Single mom extraordinaire. One of my all-time favorite people. Let's welcome Miss Alex VAILAS, Alexandra VAILAS. Hello, Alex. How are you?
I'm so great. Thank you for having me, you guys.
Hey, Alex also has a website, avestyles.com. Got to throw that in.
Right.
Thanks for joining us, Alex.
That's great.
Alex, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a joy. One, it's a joy just to catch up, but two, because we're going to get 2 episodes with you. We're going to answer kind of a important question, and one that I know you've had some experience with. You know, unfortunately and fortunately, I think the unfortunate part is that you had to go through stuff to be able to answer this question. And fortunately, though, because, gosh, I know it hasn't been easy, but just to watch how you've walked through it and got through it, and you've been a help to other people, and I know this could even be a potential help. The question that we're going to ask and answer here is, how do I rebuild my identity and value after it's been damaged? So how do you?
Are we talking about in life or
I think in life,
in social media situations?
Yeah, well,
both.
Maybe it's all. Maybe it's all of the above, Alex. We'll let you kind of figure that out.
What do you think about that, and how have you come to that question in your life?
Oh, man. Well, I first need to say, I think I'm with you guys. I think we're all still figuring this one out.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. That's for sure.
So I'm not going to pretend to have all of the answers, but I can tell you what I've been doing so far that seems to be working for me. How about that?
Right.
I like that.
Okay. Because I'm still rebuilding. I think I'm still there.
Well, when we take hits of any sort, I mean, there's some senses that rebuilding is kind of now it's a new normal. It's the whole rest of your life in some regards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not to be defeated. I mean, that sounds depressing, but but there's hope. But it does take. It's not an overnight sort of thing, I guess, is what I'm saying.
What are you rebuilding from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am rebuilding from divorce, and a divorce that really was the catalyst of losing a lot of other things. So as a mom, motherhood was a 2-parent deal with, with a house and a family, all the things. And so now I'm learning how to be a single mom. I am rebuilding my career because I had my own business, and because I got divorced and I needed health insurance, and my business was doing well, but I needed a steady paycheck and health insurance for my situation. I had to let that go and start a different type of career in the traditional workforce. I am rebuilding myself by removing the title of a wife that I no longer play that role anymore, and now went back to my maiden name of VAILAS instead of Evian, and learning who this person is. And she's not the same girl that was 22 and got married. Fun story, Ron did my wedding.
Yeah, I'm grieving along with you. It's hard because we're friends, and I do remember that day, but as we know, the day is sometimes the least significant part of the whole thing. We make a lot out of it, but there's a whole marriage that comes, and who knows what comes when that gets rolling.
Yeah. And I'm also rebuilding from some health issues. I think that the stress and everything I was going through for a long time contributed to a deteriorating health. And so I was diagnosed about 4 years ago with 3 autoimmune diseases, and I'm trying to manage as well. So my body is rebuilding itself. My titles have fallen away. My career is being rebuilt. I also physically have had to figure out how to do a house and stuff by myself.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything, Bo.
Yeah,
pretty much everything.
Your heart and your soul.
So
even.
We use the phrase rebuild. I've heard the phrase reinvent yourself, right?
Yeah.
I was recently terminated from employment. I'm in my mid-50s, and so I have to reinvent myself and try to find a paycheck and provide for my family as well. How do you stay positive? Are there any? Have you learned anything? Have you seen anything? Noticed anything? Or can you tell us about ways that you stay positive in these situations?
Oh yeah, I'm still experiencing waves of that too, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
I think that for me, hope is a very powerful word and experience. And I will say there were times when I did not have it at all. Some really, really dark days where I thought, cool, I think I'm ready to die.
Yeah.
And that bad for me at the maybe let's start there and we'll go back to maybe but when you're at that point, when you really don't have any kind of faith or hope that it's going to get better or this isn't the end.
Yeah.
You really need people to hold hope for you. Hope is not an easy thing to carry. It's a very heavy thing to carry.
I don't want to put you on the spot. What does that mean? You need to find other people to help carry the hope. What does that mean? I've never heard
I needed close friends that were, so my family doesn't live here.
Okay.
And I lost a lot of relationships in the process. You kind of lose friends and family. I lost all of my in-laws that were my family. I lost a lot. And so I remember my best friend, Katie Sturbins, Ron knows her.
Yeah.
She would have to come over. She'd have to text me almost every morning. Are you okay this morning? Are you there? How are you doing this morning? Like this minute of this day,
wow.
Not the future, but in this second, in this moment. And can I get to the next minute? Can I get to the next 5 minutes?
Wow.
Can I get to the next 10 minutes? When you hope is something that feels so heavy that if you think about carrying it through the next year or months of looking for a job or whatever, it can feel like you're running a marathon, and so you just need to think about it in sprints.
Wow. So
can I get to the next 5 minutes?
Right. So Katie, in that scenario, Katie was one that was kind of holding the hope for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's huge.
Speaking that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and my goodness, that's great.
And have you been far along enough in your rebuilding to look at where you've come from? And is there any satisfaction or pride in that, where you've come from and how you're working on it?
Yes. Immense progress, immense satisfaction, and immense freedom, and lots of hope now. And it's 4 years since that happened. It'll be 4 years in July. I think for me, when you can get little glimpses, when you start collecting the little moments of hope, right? The little things of, okay, I made it to the next 5 minutes, and then this good thing happened and I was okay. And you start collecting them over time. Then in the moments of, let's say, I got the news about my health stuff in the middle of that, and I thought, well, I can look back on that, and I knew that I would get through this here, so I can get through this to the next day. You kind of start collecting these things where you can look back and pick up that stone and say, oh, I remember that. I believe in God. I remember that God was there for me then. And I think for me, I also had to put hope to that point of spirituality, whatever it is for any of your listeners. For me, I had to put that into a higher power of God, of I'm not alone. There's some force or something greater that is sustaining me in ways that I can't even put words to. And I'm going to point out where that has been, and I'm going to remember that. And sometimes remembering is more powerful than learning. And so as we are rebuilding our identity, we're learning a lot about ourselves. But I think some of the rebuilding of identity is really remembering who I am and who I have been in the moments that were good, in the moments that things were going right.
That's huge. That's
powerful.
huge. I think we're kind of already starting to answer that question. Then how can we rebuild identity, worth, value, just even our sense of who we are after it's been damaged or legs cut out from under you? Remembering that's a key one. What else would you say, Alex? What else has kind of been helpful in to Bo's point? I mean, that's the hope is a big deal that you're trying to recover. So yeah, what else has been helpful?
I think you have to I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown.
Yeah.
But she has this thing where she talks about that if you could write on a 1x1, like literally an inch, square inch piece of paper. Yeah. Of the people whose opinions and values actually matter to you. Like who about you, it should not be a lot of people. And who of those people, when you're with them, they can hold a mirror back to you. And that's what I mean about the hope thing of like, no, I know that you are this and you feel like this and you think this, but this is not true. And I needed those people to, it's like, well, what is identity and value, right? And who gives you identity and who gives you value, right? So you have to answer those questions. And to me, I had to, before I could really, because I went through a lot of betrayal and I had a lot of self-esteem issues. When people try to white knuckle it and just say, well, I'm worth it. That was so insincere in my experience, because I was really wondering, am I worth it? I needed people to tell me that I was worth it. And I needed to look at that sheet of 1x1 and go find that person and spend time with them and let them speak that to me. And I think that for me was also God, because to me, I really believe that we each as humans have a holy and divine and sacred purpose in the beating hearts of our bodies and the souls of our bodies. And I had to go back to that. It's like, well, I'm breathing today, so I must matter because I'm breathing today. Really fundamental stuff,
Yeah.
You know what I find interesting is, you have kids, I have kids, and I don't know if I'm unique in this or if every parent does this, but we all tell our kids, you can do whatever you put your mind to.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're the greatest little daughter of mine or the greatest little son of mine. And, at the end of the day, when you put your kids to sleep and then you go to sleep, you know that you are going to protect them and do anything for them. And you're going to help them and you're going to encourage them, and et cetera, et cetera. And I always find it, so ironic that we can give all of that and be such a cheerleader and be so positive and be so helpful. But sometimes we can't do that with ourselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I guess we need somebody else to do it for us or help us, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that. I think that's the thing is like,
right.
Especially in America, we have this thought that everything that we have to solve our problems ourselves. And that's why your podcast is powerful. That's why community is so important. And we're not meant to do that by ourselves. And we do need mirrors. It's when we esteem the wrong voices and the wrong people and put them in those places where they speak our purpose and our identity and value. And that's the thing that I had to rebuild. I had to also not just surround myself with the people whose opinion I truly cherish and value, but I had to remove and I had to eliminate and the ones that do not. And I had to identify the lies that I was choosing to believe about myself, because at the end of the day, it really is a choice and I am not powerless. And I think there was a powerless mentality when everything was going wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, that's understandable. But I think what's so helpful about what you're talking about is that at the end of the day, too, like this applies, I mean, really to all of us at some point. For you, this divorce has been really catalytic to a massive rebuild on 5 or 6 different fronts of your life. But there are some that maybe divorce isn't the thing, but the childhood was the thing, or it was a employment thing, or it was some other sort of betrayal or backstabbing or a trauma. And it's crazy how that stuff can immediately attack our worth or value or our identity. And then if you don't know where to look in the first place to be reminded of who you are, whether it's, like you said, something that your faith speaks into it, or just a really good friend to remind you, hey, I know you can't see it in yourself right now, but I can, and here's what's true. And those voices are so huge. So what else has been helpful in this kind of rebuilding season?
Yeah, I think to your point, I also have been in therapy for 7 years. And again, asking for help, there's no shame in realizing you can't get yourself out of feeling unstuck. And there might be things that are not even about your situation, but things in your past. And I'm really thankful for my divorce and the catalyst that it was to get me to the healing that I needed. And there were things in my marriage prior that actually were the catalyst to my therapy. But, I needed science. I needed, my brain had been programmed with the same message for a long time. My neural pathways of remembering trauma. I had to do EMDR therapy, which is amazing. If anyone really suffers from trauma or PTSD, I really encourage any listener to explore that from somebody who's a true clinician and professional. And, that is something that has helped me tremendously. I didn't realize how I needed tools like, there are different personality tests out there. I got really into the Enneagram, which was a great mirror and tool for me to remind me, oh, okay, look at my giftedness here and here and here. Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that. And I think also we're removing this idea that you have to have arrived by now. I mean, I think I'm kind of, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of hope I never arrive, you know?
A lot of pressure with that in our society, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with social media.
Well, social media and just talking about marriage, you know,
right.
And I had that in my relationship. My wife had to be married by the time she was 30. And so, you know, so we got married 3 weeks before she turned 30. Yeah. No, I mean, you know, no, I mean, but there's a lot of pressure on those things. And that's just one example, right? Yeah. But the arrival part is, you know, it's almost like, you know, my father would always say, you know, when times were bad, he would always say, sit back and enjoy the movie. You know, you're going through rough seas and you're going through tough times, and sometimes we can't control it all. Yeah. And you know what? This too shall pass, and just sit back and enjoy the movie, and it's going to get better. There are ups and downs, you know?
Yeah. I think that our obsession with the future and is part of that arrival shame. And I think that like, you know, social media, a lot of things in our lives keep us from being present and in the moment. And if kind of going back to that survival moment of, if I can just in this moment, as the seconds tick by, what do I really, how am I truly? I'm breathing. I'm good. I'm reminding yourself that this moment is truly all we have. And in this moment, though I have wants and desires and dreams, these are all good things, but I'm also fully accepted and fully loved and fully valued as each passing moment goes by. And there's a duality or a duplicitous experience as us as humans of we need to get out of this black and white thing when you're rebuilding identity and value. You have intrinsic value all the time, and you have an identity all the time. And you can also want to grow and change that identity and evolve into something greater too. It's not one or the other. Yeah. And if you want to grow, it doesn't mean that what you are is bad.
That's huge.
Well put.
I think that alone is just such a important thing for people to tuck away. I know I will. Patience is not something that I enjoy having to practice, you know,
or being content in my case.
Yeah,
it's tough.
And it is, and sometimes it's just a time game, because you can have all of these tips and begin the work, but then we're all different in how we grieve and how we recover, and some people can bounce back in certain areas real quick, and then other times it's, you know, it might be a decade or more, and there's no formula for it, is there?
No. And it's like, all right, I lost the title of wife, which I think now, after losing it, I thought, who am I? I'm not a wife anymore. I'm like, wait a second. Is that really intrinsic? Right. Yeah. Does that really affect my value and identity? No, because I have intrinsic worth and identity without it. It's just I had to remember what that was. And in doing so, it really revealed how much I was putting my worth and identity and value into something that is very much reliant on another human being. And how many times do we let, whether it's a job or that, say how valuable we are, and we're really choosing powerlessness when we do that.
And you hear that saying, you know, your job doesn't define you, right?
Right.
It might consume you, but it doesn't define you. And some people can handle that, and some people can't handle that, right?
Yeah.
Right. And do you really want to leave a legacy of your work, or do you want to leave a legacy of your life?
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard somebody that I'm friends with went to kind of a week-long intensive, I don't know that it was counseling. I don't even really know how to describe it. But one of the rules that they went into with at the beginning was the entire week that you were there, you could never tell anybody else what you did for a living.
Ooh, that's good.
It was, and I can imagine that similar principle being applied to other. You can't describe yourself in terms of married or not married, or kids or no kids, or what my job at. Which aren't those the go-to? Hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, cool. You got any kids? Are you married? And then as if we're just reduced to where we go 9 to 5 and our status, maritally. But that's a good thing, just to come back. And isn't it crazy how even in the worst of these things, they can be used to come back to a reminder of who we really are, apart from these labels and titles that we like so much.
Yeah, so it's so funny that you talked about that intensive. I actually just, like I said, I'm still in this process, and I love who I'm becoming, and I love who I am. Right? They're both exist. But I had to hire. Not had to. I wanted to hire my friend Sarah, who's like this amazing copywriter and publicist, because I was having a hard time figuring out how to merge my worlds of entrepreneur and like workforce professional woman together and figure out that narrative. And the first thing she said to me, she said, I want you to walk into this time and with a giant permission slip to just leave all of your past and all of this at the door and just to start over if you want to. And I think that's the thing. It's like I loved her phrase of permission slip. Yeah. I think sometimes what stands in the way of rebuilding our identity and value is giving ourselves permission to do something different, or giving ourselves permission to let go of things that maybe were once a part of us and a sweet time in our lives, but no longer serve the person we are today. I think we have to sometimes give ourselves permission to do that. And of those that are on your tiny little sheet of paper, right, I think many of those are already giving you permission already. And it's us that we are often the ones that stand in our own way of rebuilding.
I like that. Alex, as we wrap this up, for somebody that's maybe taken a hit recently, or maybe it's been some time ago and are just struggling, any last thoughts or encouragement that you would give them? I
would tell them that you are not alone, that you matter, and to ask for help.
That's huge.
That rebuilding isn't something that you should do alone. Actually, I'll use the word should. It's something that I don't even know if you can do alone. Yeah. And you're not alone. You just need to ask for help.
That's good. That's good. Alex, you're in a lot of ways, even though it's been too long since we've got to see each other in person, you're dear to Anna and I. You're just one of those people that when I think of, you're beautiful inside and out. And if I can speak any words just in line with what you're talking about, like you are incredibly wise and insightful and strong and brilliant and soft-hearted, and you're very, very creative. You're one of the most authentic people I know. And it's a privilege and honor just to know you. And I've learned a lot just now, but certainly watching your journey. And thanks just for being open and honest with us on this time.
Thank you. I receive all your words. Make a girl cry, Ron. Bo, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome, and thank you. I'll just add to Ron's little bit. Thank you for having the courage to share those stories with us today.
I'm so happy to share in hopes of helping somebody else.
And I think it will, and we're very blessed to have this bit with you. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Alex, we're definitely going to have you back because we've got one in the queue. for a discussion about how do I get the good out of social media without getting killed by the bad. And you are the perfect one to answer that question. So that'll be a future episode people can look forward to. We'll have Alex VAILAS back on with us coming soon. You can look her up online on virtually any social media platform. And if you want a one-stop shop, go to avestyles.com, avestyles.com, and connect more with Alex and what she's up to. So, Alex, we love you. Thanks so much for being here. And folks, remember, as always, you never have to feel dumb for asking.
Thanks for listening to Feel Dumb for Asking with Ronnie and Bo, available on your favorite podcast provider. Please connect with Ronnie and Bo on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and RonnieandBoShow.com. Send comments to RonnieandBoShow@gmail.com.